Okay, chapter 10, quantum godness. We're at least moving away from mathematics a little bit, but I kind of like Peter explaining to us that reality isn't what it used to be. I kind of put some of my favorite quotes of his in our chapter today. Oh, Nadine is here. Nadine, hopefully you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up or something if you can't hear us, or she'll text me. Okay, reality is not a well-oiled machine that behaves in logical, predetermined ways. Instead, it is an ever-unfolding process that defies precise prediction. In it, order and chaos are not enemies but fraternal twins. Creation depends on both of them. Together, they shape life. So, who among our crowd wants reality to be a well-oiled machine versus are we okay with living in this chaos that the quantum world is bringing us? Because I do think it's a tension for everybody, and some people are more comfortable with the tension, and some people really want the world to be in that well-oiled machine. So I kind of wanted to.
It would be nice, but it's not going to happen.
Okay. How do you think? I guess my question is from our mission road, from our world that we're in together here. How do you think that mission road people are we handling this juxtaposition, I should say, in terms of you personally and we as a congregation, how do you think we're doing? That's a good question. I know sometimes I go into my pastor role, I know that, but I really want to hear how people are feeling generally about this concept because it's hard,
Point of clarification.
Okay.
Are you asking how we as individuals, or are you asking as to people's experience of being in the congregation?
Yes. Both. I did realize I asked a two-part question. It is a two-part question, which you can answer either or both.
And I think the answer is we are doing extremely well and we're doing extremely poorly.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's the
fair.
case.
That's fair.
And you can guess which question he was answering. He gave you two answers to your double question.
I will say, you had mentioned last week Joan's thesis, and I pulled it out.
Oh,
I
you
should have
did.
read it.
Okay.
But she wrote it 20 years ago.
Yes.
And prior to that, when we were doing, and I think you were part of that meditation group and all of that, she was trying really hard to get people open to spiritual practices that were a little bit different than traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And she got a ton of pushback and no significant interest really. And she wrote that in 2007. And I was thinking about it and I thought, okay, here we are 20 years later, and we're doing that.
We're better.
We're better.
Still getting pushback.
Well, I didn't know how much pushback, but
I would say if we're going to look at it from that standpoint, I think we're doing pretty good. I mean, I do think some people are just, especially if you think of spiritual practices in terms of, this is more about meditative and energy and things. Some people have point blank said to me, I'm not going to come. I'm like, oh, okay, and that's fine.
But I think reality, being a well-oiled machine, you can't live in that and have things make sense. You can't. So
you're pretty miserable if you try to stay in that well-oiled machine. Is what I have at least found for myself personally. Like what Jonathan is actually pointing out the dichotomy there. It's both. Well-oiled machines are what a lot of us want, but we're not going to get it. because life is going too fast. That's his point. Because we have this quantum universe that we're living in, and science is pushing us forward, and technology is pushing us forward in every aspect of our lives, then in his mind, we have to kind of embrace. I like his fraternal twins analogy. Not that, I always think of Lana and her identical twin, in terms of what their life must look like, because they're very separated now. I mean, Lynette lives in Iowa and Lana lives here. And so it has made their lives go different ways. But if you ask them, and I've known them since college, if you ask them, there's parts of them, of their relationship, that they cling on to be the same as always. I think that's just kind of a metaphor for what we all do. Okay, so he quotes a lot of people in these chapters, so I decided to go and look some of them up because they were kind of interesting. This lady, Barbara Brown Taylor, is an Episcopal priest, and her writing often explores finding God in darkness, nature, and the ordinary. I thought that was really interesting. So I listed some of her books if anybody's interested in looking that up. But for somebody to actually dive into those topics, the darkness, the nature, and the ordinary, means to me that they're kind of embracing that chaos a little bit. So I wanted to point her out to you. So what Mr. Enns is trying to get us to do is to get out of our fear crisis mode. That's sometimes if we want to cling to what we know, then we're perhaps gonna be in that fear crisis mode. So he wants us to move into a sense of curiosity, wonder, and hope for ourselves and the world. But what he says is knowing God is to be in this conversation with God. If we're going to understand God, we have to understand our world and our cosmos. Pretty heady stuff. Are we tracking what he's trying to get us to do here?
I want everybody to listen carefully to the opening anthem that we do today.
Okay, say some of the words to us.
When our worship goes higher, when our worship goes higher, let us touch the hem of his robe.
Wait, say it again a little bit louder, Dorothy.
When our worship moves higher, let us touch the hem of his robe. And the lyrics are they just give you goosebumps.
Yeah.
So we do a pretty good job with addiction. So
yeah. So that's that. Yeah. Yeah, I heard them practicing.
Right. I've been working on that.
Robe with a B. So it is that conversation, that higher conversation, that mystery that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Touching the hem of the robe. I like that. So, as we talked about last week, the biblical writers bore witness to this changing view of God. If you look at Genesis, and then even Genesis has different viewpoints of what the beginning of the world was about. And then you go through Old Testament to New Testament, he talked about these mystery passages that show us that God is in reality, he's still that mystery. And it's okay. I like how he said it was okay for us to rely on religious scholars. That's what he's done in his book, and we've done in our class forever and ever. To say, okay, they have done some research on this journey of looking at our history, and then looking at perhaps where we're going. And I like how Mr. Enns is saying to us, let's listen, and then allowing science to affect our views is okay. Science is changing. It's okay for religion to change too. So this is another scholar that said that the discovery of evolution in quantum physics opened up a new window to the divine mystery that illuminates the role of God and human in evolution. It is not a matter of trying to fit the old God into the new cosmos. Rather, it is the birth of a new God. That's controversial. Scholars can give us a breath of fresh air. That's Mr. Enns' quote. Does that give you a fresh air? Is that hopeful to you, or is that scary to you? Because once again, we're standing in both worlds. We're standing in the traditional world, and we're listening to what is this new science and cosmos and new age thinking, the kinds of things that Joan explored, that we're all exploring now, the energy fields. And does that give you trepidation and want you to go back to the tradition, or is it something that we can at least talk through together?
I think that if we stay in the good old days of our teaching and our understanding of Christ and God, that we limit him. And we know that he's limitless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's opening us up to some of the majesty that he is.
Yeah.
When we look in a little deeper.
Yeah. Because that's really what, if you look at the biblical writers, that's what they were trying to figure out too. They're looking at their world and they're trying to figure it out in theological terms, and that's what, we're continuing to do. We'll talk a little later in the chapter about, the Trinity. And it's a fascinating subject to me because the Trinity is not in the Bible. It actually doesn't say the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. That is something that early Christian scholars debated for years until they got to the Nicene Creed. And so, to me, that meant they were trying to take passages from the Bible, and we'll go look at some of them, and figure out what was meant. Where does spirit come in to the equation? And they came up with the Nicene Creed, which is kind of fascinating because, of course, that's the basis for all Christianity now.
Jane, I like that quote.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I like that quote, but I'd add a couple more words and simply say it leads us to a new understanding of God, not a new God.
Yeah, me too.
I was thinking experience.
Yeah, because I still like the fact that God isn't the one changing; we are.
I think that it's our ability to get beyond the limit. Just it's exactly what Arlene said.
Yeah.
Beyond the limit that our old view.
Yeah.
The old view.
Yeah.
This whole conversation about quantum mechanics, quantum physics, about expanding the Newtonian into quantum allows us to experience God in a way that we never had before, much more expansive. And as he, she, it, or they are uncomprehendable.
Right.
If I could comprehend my God, then he probably wouldn't be God.
Right. It's that embracing the mystery thing. It's about, living in the uncertainty. And science used to be, that's what Newtonian science is. Here it is. We can figure it out. We can explain gravity now, which is exciting. But then on the other hand, it brought forth this issue of, everything must be explainable. Then quantum physics comes along and says, nope.
Quantum physics come along and goes, ha.
Yeah. There are some things that are unexplainable. It's like, what? That's got to drive the scientists crazy too. Come on.
It's not to say that we don't need that old base that we all had, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be here.
That's true. Newton, if we look at it in terms of that, the Newtonian viewpoint was he did a mathematical formula and he figured it out, and so did Einstein. And, maybe we can too. I mean, we've got brilliant people who are figuring all
There's
this out.
not an end game is the thing. I mean, no matter, it's just more discovery.
Yeah.
So when you think, okay, this explains it,
Yeah.
then at some point you're going to be disappointed because
Yeah.
the world is constantly, everything has changed.
The more you know, the more you know you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not mutually exclusive. Newtonian physics is not mutually
Right.
does not mutually exclude quantum physics. That old school religion doesn't exclude our whole new experience
Right.
of the spirit of the
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah. Like Arlene said, it's still good to, we still have that basis of knowledge. It's okay to build on the knowledge that we have.
That's all we can do, really.
Yeah.
That's our foundation.
I mean, you just have to build on things. You don't get from here to here without going there.
Yeah. Well, and David, you can probably relate to this in the legal world. The young lawyers, somebody asks them a legal question and they answer it, you know? It's like, I got the answer. And I'm looking at them like, no. The more you learn the law, the more you learn that you need to go look it up, you know? So my answers are, here's what I know today, and let me look to get you a better answer tomorrow. Because it's, the older we get, the more we know what we don't know, like what you say. So it's like, that's the smarter person in my mind, is the one that says, I'm not going to tell you the exact answer today, you know? Hello.
It's like we tell all of the MAs when Joint Commission is coming. If you don't know the answer, say, you know, I'm not sure, but I think I know who I can find out the answer from.
What's MA?
Joint Commission. Oh, MA, medical assistant.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You know, it has taken thousands of years for God to open up to us what we know now.
Yeah.
I think we know now. Who knows how many more thousand years?
Yeah.
Because he's unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
He created quantum physics. You know,
Yeah.
he created everything.
Yeah.
He's the creator.
Yeah.
And we are just maybe that far along in the process of learning how big and how expansive he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we'll even truly understand when we get to heaven. It may take a long time in heaven to understand how big he is.
Yeah. And Peter Enns, that's kind of the theme of this book, is that, you know, we're going to get curveball after curveball in our lifetime, and the question is, how are we going to react to those curveballs? And he's excited.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
curveballs, you said?
Yeah.
Yes. How are we going to keep artificial intelligence out of the hands of evildoers like Vladimir Putin
That is a big
and the
curveball.
Taliban and those
Yeah.
evildoers? How do we keep AI out of their realm and out of their hands? That's going to be the next big challenge.
Do we know who the evildoers are?
I know.
I think they're amongst us.
They're what?
I think evildoers are amongst us now. So
What?
anyway, but we're not. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about the ones that have the power and have the nuclear bombs and all, you know.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
I guess this is the time to say evildoer really is a matter of point of view, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Well, and you know, we do. We have to be, you know, as Americans, as human beings, we have to be aware of who in our world is trying to, you know, disrupt what we believe God wants us to be doing in our world. We are a peace church, you know, so to me, that means that whatever I do in my personal life, I'm hoping that I can show peace to people, whatever I do.
Doers in this country too.
That's right. You know, that some of them are in our workplaces, you know, that they don't have good intentions for the people around us. I mean, go ahead, Dennis.
So to David's point, I've seen a picture somewhere where a Native American was holding a sign that says, "We've been fighting domestic terrorists since 1492.
Yeah. I know. Looking at ourselves realistically is important, you know. what we did to the Native Americans is sinful. It's, I don't know how else to say it. So I think obviously looking back at a lot of the things America did, we can see the horror that some people bring on others. Human beings are capable of this. So the question is, moving forward, I kind of like Enns' viewpoint of the Nicene Creed. Because, Nicene Creed is in the common prayer for lots of religions now. I think, what is he, Episcopalian? I think they're in a lot of different legends. So this is what they came up with that has pretty much stayed throughout the centuries. We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and of all that is seen and unseen. So it's that word unseen that he grabs onto. And he says it's a nod to the angelic realm. So even, the early Christians and obviously the biblical writers knew that they couldn't explain it all, that there was something, an angelic realm that they could not explain. So in Enns' update, he's saying that, and of all that is seen and unseen, a reality that turns our everyday notion of reality upside down and inside out, leaves us with a God who is so far beyond our grasp that he feels like the word unseen feels like a cop-out. So I am a very good typer these days. Surrendering to the mystery of the unseen God is the only spiritual way forward that gets any lasting traction in my life. That's what he's saying. Surrendering to that mystery. That's what we've been talking about. That we're not going to have answers. I like to consider myself a student for the rest of, I love being a student, and so I want to learn more. And so I have to look at this now and say, there are some things that I'm not going to be able to explain. And that's okay.
So, Jane, this is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, guys. So I know you guys read this and discussed it, but I'm just in the middle of Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And so everything you're talking about just is pulling me into that consciousness and out-of-body experiences.
That's true.
Very much so.
Yeah, that book was all about the unseen and what happens after death, and
the connection between all of us. That non-local consciousness that Brown talks about in the book.
Yeah.
Which is a little too.
I know.
Yeah.
But I did finish that book. I don't think I came to that book club, but I finished that.
No, because you weren't finished yet.
Okay, that's right. That's why I didn't tell you. So the good, we were talking about this earlier. The good thing that Newton did for us is he pulled back that curtain on the realm of the seen by explaining mathematically what was happening to us. I like how Enns called him a beast. But what Newton ushered in was also what kind of happened in terms of religion. It ushered in a physics of ordinary matter governed by mathematical laws rather than the divine command. So while Newton himself did not put mathematical laws against God's commands, that is where we've been talking for centuries, science and religion. It used to be one person, the theologian was also the mathematician, was also the astrologer, was the astronomer, and so when it separated is what I think Mr. Enns is talking about. When it separated, and the mathematicians in the world or the scientists in the world couldn't explain God, then some people went the way of saying that there is no God. What were we talking about? Oh, Nadine, what does your guy say about God? That I can't remember the term for he's an agnostic, but um, he just hasn't seen it yet, kind of a thing, you know. And so it also led us, and those of us who love our American history know that our founding fathers were deists, which means that they believed that God is this divine clockmaker who created the cosmos to run itself. And then he sat back and watched it all play out. So it became this separation between, there was no more relationship between God and human beings. And some people believe it that way, you know. Some people say that God is this great, I like that term, clockmaker, and that you know he just kind of is letting it's a debate that we've had forever, predetermination. You know, is God involved in every single part of our life, or did he just, you know, throw us all out here and now we're on our own, kind of a thing. I think it's a debate that nobody's really gonna ever find the answer to that. Well, he answered it by what? Saying
God does not play dice.
He was bored of speaking though.
Well, you know, it kind of makes sense when Newton and others can reduce reality to a mathematical equation. Then it seems like there's no room for a God who tinkers here and there. It all he starts it up, he creates, and it runs on from there. And I think that does lead to kind of a feeling of predestination and that all things are preordained. And they're not. Because if they were, we'd be well past Zion by now.
I would hope so.
I mean, our progress would be
God's
such...
just toying with us. I don't know, you know, what's he doing? You know?
He's making us row.
Yeah, there you go. So Newton gave us consistency, stability, predictability. That's what we're talking about. And then that particular stability, though, it doesn't prepare us for the cosmic order that we now understand from quantum physics. So the quantum world gives us unpredictability, possibility, and that is not, was that a word? Did I never?
Indeterminacy is a word. I don't know how you spelled it.
I don't think I spelled it right. Really, I was tired. Yeah, indeterminacy.
We know what you mean.
I was having trouble with spelling.
James.
That's not me though. I love spelling. I was tired.
Probably too tired when you did.
I was too tired to do. Okay. So I really liked this Philippians scripture when we're talking about, you know, it's one of my favorites, that the peace of God transcends all understanding. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so to me, that is the awakening of, we don't understand, but that's okay, because we're also guarded, our hearts and minds are guarded by this relationship that we have with God through Jesus. And we're going to talk more about how he talks about that. So he talks about, I think we've talked about this before, panentheism versus pantheism. So pantheism is God is all that exists, but panentheism is that God is separate but is in all things. So it isn't that you look at a tree and you worship a tree. It's that you look at a tree and you say, and you see that God created that tree, that there is a cosmos order to things. We talked about that last week, you know. The trees communicate with each other. There is something spiritual. Go ahead.
If Enns believes that God is in every atomic and subatomic particle,
yes,
how is that different than pantheism?
I think it's in my mind, and somebody smarter than me can answer it, but in my mind, when he says that he doesn't believe that God is the sum total of creation, but he does say that he it's like I do think it's partly the clockmaker thing where he, I mean, the world begins and then he just wants to be a part of it. It's almost like God and humans are constantly trying to connect with each other.
Don't you suppose the distinction is the word separate?
Yes.
So we're having real trouble hearing other people.
Oh, okay. We'll talk louder.
So I said, isn't the distinction the word in the word separate between the two?
I think it's also in the word in. It's like this table is not God, but God is in all things. I mean, there's that spark. And if you want to bring it to human beings, we are not God, but there's a spark of God in all of us. That's how I would see the difference between panentheism and pantheism.
So here's another way he said it. He does not worship trees and rivers, but I thought it was kind of cool that I could find a tree that looked like God was in it.
There's one on 85th and 85th Street, and I can't think of the name of it, but if you look at it from the middle of the intersection, it looks just like a person, the face of an old, and I keep saying that's a real ant.
That's right. We'll go back to Tolkien and
it's got a
Game
growth,
of Thrones.
It's got a growth that looks like its nose with the nostrils, and it's got the eyes, and when you look at it at a right angle, it even looks like it has eyelashes. It's so cool.
Well, the pantheists would worship that tree
Right.
as God.
Right.
The panentheists would say God has a spark. The life force in that is part of God.
Is that a good enough distinction for you, Dennis?
Not really.
I didn't think it would be. It is hard.
It's kind of semantics to me. I mean, we're saying in, but it's not.
Okay, how about this one?
But he's not there.
How about this? God's way of creating, which I'm not sure I agree with, by the way. God's way of creating is not his decision to put a tree or river in a certain place, but by the random and unpredictable evolutionary process. So he is, so the world is to me, I keep going back to the Big Bang Theory, that everybody's like, that can't be God, and in my mind, there's still this intelligent creator behind the Big Bang, but there's also chaos. I mean, God doesn't say, oh, that tree's going to grow right there today, but I do think because the tree is made of these organic matter, that perhaps that is that relationship. And I think that is why God can be in all things, is that, it kind of infuses us, perhaps. I don't know. It's really hard. Can we just say we don't understand?
Is that okay?
Is that okay?
Of course.
I like how he says our words are just placeholders anyway. He's saying we don't really know. And so he's trying to tell us that the very nature of theology as we as humans talk about it is something maybe language can't figure it out yet,
Language is an impediment often.
It is. Yeah. It is. And we've talked about that in terms of translating the Bible, and I can't remember who said it a few weeks ago, but you have a word in English. Was it you, Dorothy? Somebody was talking about you.
I was talking about Leo Van Kloon.
Yes.
He did translating for the church. He was Dutch, very good English speaker. But he said, I hear all of you people arguing about faith and belief. And he said, in Dutch, I only have one word.
Right.
So that argument doesn't exist.
So we go on in English saying, what's the difference between faith and
Right.
belief? And the Dutch people are going, stop
Faith
talking.
and faith, what?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons the church changed its name, because it didn't translate into, easily to a lot of other places, other languages.
Okay.
Well, I can remember walking to one of the churches in Holland when we were.
Talk a little louder. I can't hear you.
When we were in Holland, Leo and Haitian, we met them at church, obviously. And we went to a conference at another location.
Friesland.
In Friesland. And we were walking, we had to park, and we were walking down the street, and Leo said, well, I think you can tell which church is ours. It's the one with the longest name. Even though we didn't recognize all of that in Dutch.
Yeah.
It had the long name.
So he's talking again about our older ways are more deeply ingrained in us. But the world is continuing to change at a steady clip. He wants us to adjust our conversation. I like that. I liked that concept too. It's like, we need to talk more in the viewpoint of a quantum viewpoint rather than a Newtonian viewpoint. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, I kind of think that's what we're trying to do.
I mean, Newton's laws are very helpful, but they do not explain everything.
But
Yeah.
that's what they knew at that point.
Right.
Or that's what they discovered.
Yeah.
And why can't God be mathematics?
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of, you explain one thing and then something else falls outside that pattern. So then what do you do with that? And so it's just a constant growth of, or evolution, or whatever you want to call it. But why can't God be mathematics?
Yeah, well, he's definitely, I don't know why he couldn't be in mathematics. I mean, whatever language we want to use.
It's all there already.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when you look at the spiral, I mean, we've talked about that. I mean, mathematicians, I mean, I don't know if Ron's here. Ron, Ron talks about that with, with, it's a formula. It's a very specific formula. And yet you look at the beauty of the spiral and our temple. I always think of our temple because that's what it's kind of based on, is that symbol that it is. That's very godlike. And
I agree with you, Jane.
it's godlike and mathematical, right?
Yes, yes.
There he is.
There's so many,
Like
so
that.
many understandings that he's put in place, and we are recipients of his understanding.
Yeah. And really, with all of this science and mathematics, it's us figuring out God just one step closer. But if it's like infinity, then everybody knows that infinity great and infinity to the large and infinity to the small doesn't have an end, which always confused me when I was studying math. It's like, wait a minute.
I think also the example of that I have heard in workshops is that it's like a river. Once you step in the river, every moment is different. You will never step in that same place in the river again because everything has moved.
Oh, I like that.
So if you're willing to step into the river, then you're just going to know that everything changes. You can't relive this moment ever again. So nothing is static, and we just have to accept or embrace, not even accept. It should be a wonderful thing that you can just embrace the fact that we're constantly moving forward or moving. I mean, we can choose to fight it, I guess, but that's a choice.
I like that. And to take that metaphor even further, when you step into the river, you are changed and the river is changed.
Yeah.
Because you have changed the molecules to go around you. and I do think that's what Enns is talking about, the relationship between God and human beings, is actually a two-way communication.
Building on what she said about the river, we know that over time, the river changes where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's miles away from where it used to be.
Yeah.
So, that's another point of that ever-changing.
If anybody's ever been to the Grand Canyon, that was a river.
The Mayans and some of those older ancient civilizations lived and died by the river.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They put that all in the context of baptism.
Go ahead. Expand.
You are changed when you arise out of the baptismal font.
I like that, and it's also the water.
Yeah.
Water's a cool metaphor for a lot of things. So I do think Peter keeps bringing us to this relationship with God theory, and then he's in this part of it. There are two movies that he talks about. This one, has anybody ever seen Bridge of Terabithia?
I've never seen it, but I read the book recently.
Oh yeah.
Very sad, but very good.
I know, that's what I was remembering too, is the sad part about it. But I do like this quote, where this young, kind of wild child goes to church with her friend who's a fundamentalist Christian, and the little sister of the boy in the story is saying, if you don't obey God's laws, you're going to go to hell. And this little girl is saying, well, I don't think God goes around damning people to hell. He's too busy running all this. And it's fascinating to me that someone who isn't, churched is saying to those people that she already sees God in, because she loves to run in the woods, and when all of us have said different parts of nature is our way to commune with God, whether it's the ocean or the mountains, or, we can stand on the mountaintops and praise the Lord because it's so awesome, And so we did go. Jesus was the one that tried to teach the people that we were going from an angry, vengeful God and explaining nature as God being angry to the greatest commandment is love. I mean, Jesus made that clear through his whole life. And so damning people, first of all, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's our job. I do think whatever judgment comes, it's going to be God's job. But I do think that I love this little girl's quote that is saying, my gosh, isn't God busy? He's kind of busy bringing this beautiful world to us and sharing love with us. I mean, why can't we focus on that? I think when we focus on the damning and the hell and the negative, then we're missing the point of what God is meaning. So this other movie, Interstellar, that one, I did not understand that movie. I saw it.
Explain it.
Huh?
Don't have time to explain it.
Don't have time. Oh, that's right. You made that quote already. But what he talks about, and I'm going to have to go back and watch it again because it is kind of fascinating, that it was this father-daughter relationship that kind of reached through space and time in order to heal the world. And so Christ is relational. God is relational. Matthew 18:20, for where two or three are gathered in my name, I am there among them. So that, I think, somebody else correct me if they understood this differently, I think what Enns is talking about is that relationships are going to reach through all of this discussion of time and a discussion of science and discussion of math. And God wants to be relational with us. He wants to have a conversation with us. We've talked about that a lot in our church, I mean, community of Christ has the word communion in it. We commune with each other and we commune with Christ. And that's what this guy said, Dennis Edwards. Nothing is conceivable as existing all by itself, which is interesting. It's the tree falls in the woods. Maybe the other trees hear it. Yeah. There is no true being without communion. So really he's talking about us. For you to isolate yourself too much, I think is the root of depression, and people need relationships, with each other and with God, and honestly, to me, that's what a church is for. We are here to build relationships.
Another movie I would point out is Contact.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Because when the alien force comes to visit her, it's in the form of her dad. And he kind of points out, hey, you can't live on your own. You need relationships. That there are a lot of things that you don't understand.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're stupid or, it's just kind of like there's more to learn, but you need the relationship with others to do so.
Right.
And when she comes back, even though she's still against like pure religion, she ends up finally giving in to her feelings for the other guy.
Well, and religion and science could talk to each other.
Yeah.
That's what, because he recognized that the preacher, Matthew McConaughey, who's in both movies.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Matthew McConaughey was able to say to Jodie Foster, I don't remember, that he believed her.
Yeah.
Even though she had no proof, because, it didn't look like she was gone for very long, I mean, it just like it went straight through, and she didn't. So time and space had been disrupted, but they were able to have a relationship with each other because they can just say, what was that thing that she said in the hearing at the end, where the scientist guy was saying Occam's razor is the simplest thing, and she just said, I can't explain it,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I love that movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but it just kind of breaks things down to, you don't have to have the answers to everything. And we're not going to have the answers to everything. But you need that one person to see you and to listen.
Yes.
And even if they don't completely believe, like Matthew McConaughey did,
right,
they were able to, they need to be able to stand by you.
And she didn't believe completely in religion either.
No.
They were just
able to
they could see each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to junior high camp when I was a kid. And the one that was most memorable to me and, had a lot of things that affected me for the rest of my life. They used the theme of a lot of the Simon and Garfunkel music. And a lot of it has to do with community and relationships and not being, I am a rock.
Right.
It really, it was really meaningful to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's the only thing probably that I can remember from junior highs, that I went to.
Yeah.
That it really was very meaningful.
Was emphasizing relationship.
Right.
Yeah. So in the beginning was the Word. We all know that scripture. And, and then the word means logos, and it means divine force. And then when we're looking at the book of John, it's Jesus is the Word. And so Mr. Enns kind of took this a little broader than what I used to say, what used to think about Jesus, is that perhaps that Jesus was in the beginning with God, with the universe, with the creation. And so when we're saying, I got to skip forward because I don't have a lot on it. When we're saying God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, the famous scripture, perhaps what Mr. Enns is saying is that Jesus was always there in relationship to God and the universe. And what we can all say, I mean, a lot of there's so many different viewpoints of how how spirit and the soul becomes a part of the body, and then what happens to it when people die. And the answer is none of us know. but I do like the concept of Jesus Christ was there in the beginning, and so that relationship with God was there all along, and perhaps we all were. I mean, I don't know.
There's the Gospel of John, the only one that goes down that path. There's 3 synoptics.
I know.
But I think John is the only one that doesn't use Mark, Q, and some other source to write it, though.
I've never really liked the book. But that's just me.
John has its own source.
Embrace it if you wish. But
Yeah.
To me, it just seems like it's off on a different path.
Yeah. I've read that too. That the book of John, it's kind of John. Whoever wrote the book of John was also reading the letters of Paul, and so that was the viewpoint. When we've talked about it a lot, where who is God? Is God separate from you? Is God within you? It's the book of Thomas versus the book of John. And I do think that there has been some separation between the two. But this is Mr. Enns kind of bringing it back together, which surprised me. What are you thinking, Dennis?
Well, I was just going to say, to me, this is all a Greek philosophical viewpoint of trying to explain Jesus and God. Somewhere, I think the Jewish viewpoint got dropped out, and I don't think it's done.
Yeah, that's true. You got to remember who Peter Enns is. He's coming from this very traditional evangelical viewpoint, and so this is new to me. I don't think we've studied it this way before, where he is saying that the outpouring of God's relational self at the beginning that gave us the universe is now intensified in another outpouring and another beginning for all reality, the incarnation of Christ. So Christ was there in the beginning, but then when he came to the world, it was God showing, what a human being and a divine being together looks like.
Isn't it kind of hard to believe, though, that happened only 2,000 years ago, and the planet is 3.5 billion years old, and the universe is 13.8 billion. I have a little problem with this.
Well, remember, we've talked about this too, like the term, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the Messiah, the divine one, has had different incarnations.
And first of all, in Jewish viewpoint, Messiah isn't necessarily a divine person.
I thought the prophets were. Well, what's the word? Christ or Messiah? What's the word
just means the anointed one.
The anointed one. There you go. Sorry, anointed one. Okay.
We're talking about a Messiah.
Yeah.
It's just different. I mean, you can just have a king be a Messiah.
True.
Because they were anointed.
But anointed, are we saying anointed by God? Is that how the Jewish faith looks at it?
They believed their kings were, or that certain kings were.
Right.
I'm just trying to say, in the big scheme with the universe as old as it is, it seems all I think he is. Sharon's been reading a book, The Arrogant Ape, talking about
I love that.
human exceptionalism, and I think Enns is right in there with that, because in the book he says the crowning achievement thus far is that human consciousness has developed. We can only really speak, I think, for the solar system we exist in.
Right.
There could be consciousness way beyond ours in other parts of the universe. We don't even know the consciousness of the other living creatures around us.
That's true.
So I would challenge that this is it may be the highest point
So far
on this planet as far as consciousness, but I'm not even sure I can buy into that. But anyway, I think he's into human exceptionalism. I'm starting to have my doubts about all that.
Well,
and a lot of human beings are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Enns keep using the phrase mystery passages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, we can't put ourselves in the place of some alien who resides several hundred light years away from us. We are exceptional in our sphere of existence. But we also, all the way through the Old Testament and the New, you have prophets and writers trying to address this mystery, and that's why the mystery passages show up.
Here's two of them right here.
And 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, there will be more mystery passages because we still don't understand fully what God is all about. So I don't get hung up on Jesus being there at the moment of creation. I think it's, again, John's attempt to figure out the mystery of God and how that ties in with Jesus being, quote, his one only begotten son. And that changes for us over time as we learn and discover more.
Well, I would agree with that. I would say it's a Greek model of trying to explain some things that they were dealing with. And just like Newton's model explains a lot of things, in some ways it was deficient, and a better model came along for Einstein. And for all I know, somebody's going to come up with a better model explaining things than what Einstein did, or the guys who came up with quantum mechanics, quantum physics.
Well, and we have to be kind and think about the fact that the Greeks had to exist before we got to Newton, and Newton had to exist before we got to Einstein.
Yeah.
And these are all stepping stones along the way to our understanding.
The problem there is that we're still using scriptures from 2,000 or more years ago with their understandings. We're still trying to, I think, rationalize what they understood and believed with what we now know and say, let's somehow harmonize it. And I'm not sure you can do that.
I do like what Enns is pointing out, though, is that there are these mystery passages that nobody's been able to explain. That's what he's trying to tell us. And this is why he's kind of expanding his own viewpoint of who Christ is by saying that all creation passes through Christ, who is tied to all creation. So this is a curveball for him, that he's saying it's not just tied to personal salvation, it's tied to all creation. And that's huge for somebody who grew up in the religion that he grew up in, because I hear from most people in the evangelical churches that it's all about the individual salvation, where I kind of like that he's taking it a step beyond that for the more traditional, that's pretty radical for him to be going there. It's not necessarily radical for some of us, but I do think it's radical to say, like these two passages are talking about these growing pains in creation, and that God is a part of all creation, the visible and the invisible. He's trying to tell us that there is something beyond that God is in this whole creation process, and Christ is too. That's how I understood this chapter. Am I right? So we matter. I love that little pun. We matter. that God lives in all matter, sustaining creation moment by moment. Our lives matter to God because our lives affect God. I've never thought of it that way. He's really trying to emphasize for us that God wants a relationship with us. And, we've always thought that about Christ. Christ was all about relationships and love and, trying to knock the heads of the disciples into understanding what he's meaning. How many parables did he say? And the disciples still didn't get it right, There's Peter doubting him. Can you imagine Christ thinking to himself, I tried, I tried to explain to Peter what's going on, and he still denied me 3 times, So I do like the whole God is in relationship with all of us, and including Christ in this cosmos of creation, perhaps.
I kind of think of it as God as the whole, and everything else is a piece, and every piece is important to have the whole. So we each, everything, I don't know how to explain it, but I guess as I said, I'm kind of like we're all one. We're all a piece of the puzzle, and the puzzle is God.
And together we're more than we are
as
pieces.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the river and how the metaphor of stepping in a river and it changes, one of the most powerful summer camps I went to was in senior high, and one of the apostles was the minister, and he took the theme and threw it out the window and said, this is what we're going to focus on. And it was and the theme song ended up becoming Garth Brooks' Life is Like a River.
Mm.
And that's one of my favorite songs by him. And I do this in the car when I'm alone, because I will restart that song like 4 times because it's so good.
What's the language that you remember the most from it?
Well, it talks about how life is like a river, ever changing as it flows, and a dreamer is just a vessel who must follow where it goes.
There you go.
And
that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just this song that is so powerful. It's totally against, the rest of the CD, other than one other song, is very country and everything, and then you get to these 2 serious songs at the end, and it's so good. And I love both of them, so I replay both of them. But
awesome.
I'm reading a book right now called Atmosphere that was one of the book club things for Good Morning America. And in it, she is explaining her belief in God to her girlfriend. And I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it, but it was just beautiful, and it fits in with a lot of what we're saying here, that God isn't necessarily in the church building, and how she sees it. And she's an astronaut, so she's been loving the world or the universe since she was 7 years old. Very good book.
Cool. Okay. Are you teacher next week?
Yes.
Chapter 11. We only have 2 more chapters in this book. We're going pretty fast.
I get to do 11 and 12 and the epilogue over the next 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, not next week. We don't have to read them all. No. But we do read chapter 11 for next week.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Thank you. My
cute little dragon.